Well, I think being raised during the Depression is a very important thing in my generation. I think it meant that I had to learn very early how to work hard and how to be independent. And so maybe part of it is that you just learn that you've got to be independent and that the world isn't going to come to you with all sorts of gifts. Not very enthusiastic. My mother wasn't even enthusiastic about my going to college, but I had good friends in graduate school who were very, very encouraging, and I still retain some of those colleagues through all the years, and they made a huge difference. Early years, it was a challenge to find a position. So in the early years, I think being a woman was a big handicap. Pursuing the kind of work I have been doing was not very much appreciated across the social sciences. So, but I just got fascinated with what I was doing, and so being a stubborn son of a gun, I just kept going. Well, trying to do really good field work, and then I was very fortunate. I was able, after being graduate advisor during the Vietnam War and 80 entering students and a fair administrative load, I was able to teach my first graduate seminar, and I had outstanding graduate students, some of whom have become colleagues and I have worked with for many years. And I then worked with undergraduate students so that I was able to blend research and teaching in a very active way in Indianapolis, studying policing in black communities, in Chicago, again, studying policing. And that was so interesting that I wasn't so concerned about what my colleagues thought. I just got interested in what I was doing. It was a big controversy at UCLA in the political science department. They'd not had a woman in their program for many years, and there were 4 of us out of 40 admitted in the year I was admitted to a doctoral program, and there were many of the faculty who were extremely upset. But again, I had many friends that helped me through it. Yes. I don't think they are supporting socialism as a top-down theory. A lot of socialist governments are very much top-down, and I think my theory does challenge that any top-down government, whether on the right or the left, is unlikely to be able to solve many of the problems of resource sustainability in the world. There is a strong divide between micro and macro, and my theories are all in the micro area. But there's a big challenge in trying to understand why people make the decisions they do, and particularly why they make decisions in dilemma-type settings, where our traditional theory had predicted that they would make decisions not to cooperate, and they frequently make other decisions. Well, I'm more concerned about the broader separation of the social sciences. I think that is a real danger. Because we can, I call them the silos, if everyone works in their silo rather than learning from one another. So I work across disciplines and always have. My Ph.D. committee, I had sociology, engineering, economics, and political science on it. It's not integration, it's that people are learning their own discipline. I don't want to get rid of the disciplines entirely, But it is then that people learn how to work together, and that we have very bad incentives. If you publish outside your discipline, frequently inside your discipline, that's not counted for tenure. And so there are very substantial disincentives to do interdisciplinary work. So interdisciplinary and integration are different. Well, Manser, no, sorry, not Manser, he came later. Garrett Hardin wrote a very stirring article in 1968 published in Science, and he imagined a pasture open to all and posited that if that were the case, then everyone would bring their animals on and they would keep bringing more and more and more, and they would eventually overuse the commons. What he went on to say was that they were trapped and could not themselves get out of it. And what our theoretical work and empirical work has shown is that in many instances, but not all, people have found ways of agreeing on their own rules and extracting themselves from the problem. This is this concept of polycentricity, of enabling both market and governments at multiple scales to interact with community organization so that we have a complex nested system. And it ain't pretty in the sense that it's nice and neat. And many people have tried to get rid of creative solutions that are complex. But society is complex, people are complex. And for us to have simple solutions to complex problems, not a good idea. If the community at play were only the entire planet, and we simply wait until the big guys make a decision, we're in deep trouble. Our theoretical work on polycentricity here is very relevant in that while in any greenhouse gas emission does have a global effect, it may also have, and usually does, local and regional effects. So we need to be thinking about how to enhance the ways of organizing around the local and regional so as to produce more externalities that are positive at the global. Well, a great number of the policies laid down. Let's take the policies for Eastern Africa related to the pasture area that the Maasai occupied. The Maasai had been there for centuries and had figured out a way of grazing over a great distance so that in an area where the rainfall was limited and spotty, they were able to maintain that rangeland in a very good form. It didn't look pretty because that's the way it was. But if you graze down too far and then you let some other things come up and don't graze in an area and you get big bushes, then you end up with ruining the functioning of it. Well, when the Brits came in, they gave half of it, well, not half, they gave a very large segment away to colonial farmers and to set up a big reserve. The Kenyan government in the 1950s onward kept giving away. They finally created group ranches, but the group ranches weren't large enough to really enable them to maintain the kind of system that worked. They then have been privatizing themselves, the Maasai, their land, so it would not be given away again by the government, and working out arrangements so that family and friends can share, and they're recreating the movement of the cattle around. And Esther Mwangi has done a wonderful job of studying this over time, and the local people may again find a way of coping with a very difficult and challenging environment. Well, I would like to have a dinner with John R. Commons, who was a very distinguished labor economist at the University of Wisconsin, and whose work I've read multiple times and I still assign to my students. He was struggling with trying to understand how to enable labor to organize more effectively, and wrote some of the initial legislation for labor law in Wisconsin and elsewhere. And he had a very interesting philosophy about rights having a counterpart to duties. And so if somebody has a right, somebody has to have a duty. And I would love to discuss with him some of those philosophical foundations. You know, it's a big problem, and Gary Leibkap has done an excellent variety of very good economic articles on oil wells. And there your problem is timing rather than how much you take out now. Because if you take out oil too fast, the soil around it collapses. And so oil companies have had to invest heavily in getting good technical geologic information and then developing agreements among them as to the way they're going to extract. And to that extent, while the oil is in the ground, it's a common pool. But like water, once it's pulled out, it becomes something that can be packaged. And here, the problem of getting good timing is a very big one. In the Middle East, oil has been run pretty much as an oligopoly, and a part of our problem is the pricing of an oligopoly is not necessarily a fair pricing. On the other hand, we do need to have more resources that are used for heating and transport priced higher, but it's then can that money go into public coffers that then invest in new solar innovations, wind power, and a variety of other techniques rather than into an oligopolist pocket. Well, all of the water industry in the United States is dealing with a common pool resource, and so there are many private and public firms, and many of them do very well and others don't. Some are not good at all. Electricity is also using common facilities, but both with electricity and water, they both have an arrangement in many cities where when you actually use it in a household, you now have converted the water in the household to a private good. And so it is again showing this difference between the water in the lake or in the river and the water that's in the pipe and gone into the household, and you turn the tap and now it's private good. We've made a distinction in our work between public goods and common pool resources. Both of them have a problem of keeping people out. It's difficult to exclude people from a large fishery or from an internet. But my use of knowledge does not take away from your use of knowledge. There's no subtractability. Now, on the internet, there are problems of congestion from time to time, and we've been building and building and building so that we keep making it bigger and bigger, and the problems of congestion are not as great. But we have problems then of when we develop freeware, who is encouraged to do so, how do we give credit where credit's due, and there are lots of people who said, oh, you'd never have people contribute to making freeway. Well, wrong, they do. So there are many similarities, but it is a somewhat different problem. And Charlotte Hess and I have been working on that one, and Charlie Schweik at University of Massachusetts Amherst. Well, they're not so informal. Over time, Doug Van Houweling and others who have been involved in developing those rules have tried to be sure that there were reasonable rules. And it's a challenge. This is not an easy thing to organize, but people have been working on it very hard. There are problems of scam and all sorts of problems of this sort, but even in farmers markets around the world, you sometimes will find some people coming in a vegetable stand and having rotten fruit underneath the good fruit. So I don't know any institution that works perfectly in all circumstances.